Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free. Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free. Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free. I know you care. But not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free. Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free.
There's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, stare, okay? That means give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from when it was first published and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org. It's lit.
Listen, there's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org.
Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free.
There's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, stare, okay? That means give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from when it was first published and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org. It's lit. Ah!
My friends aren't getting vaccinated because they've had COVID already, so they think they're good.
Well, actually, that's not quite true. What we know is if you've had native immunity, meaning that you have been infected with COVID, you absolutely have some immunity for a period of time. But the vaccines give you better immunity, especially as we anticipate and continue to battle these variants and mutations that continue to challenge us. The other thing to think about is that if you've been infected with COVID, one of the reasons you should move forward with getting the vaccine is that when you combine native immunity and vaccine immunity, you get even better immunization and protection. So we want everybody to move forward with getting these vaccines, whether you've been infected with COVID or not.
Listen, there's so much misinformation on social media out there. And when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org.
All right, we're ready to start. Is a mic up there? I said, you don't want to know them too much. This is cold.
Yes. Just stop in 1 minute. One minute, man. I apologize for the delay, but believe me, it was not our fault. But we take blame. All right.
That's everybody or
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. First of all, let's open with a word of prayer. From Solomon Jones.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for life. We thank Thee for health. We thank Thee for strength. We thank Thee for our family, our loved ones. Lord, we thank Thee for just being God all by yourself. Oh God, we ask You as we come together in this meeting, we ask You to be with us and let us lead and guide the way that You want us to do. In Jesus' name we do pray. And everyone says, amen.
All right, again, we apologize for the delay. The food should have been here 45 minutes ago. But first, as our usual, we like to introduce everyone, just introduce themselves. We start here. Yeah, this is not a road, so we better talk a little loud.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Angela Page. I represent Oslo County and part of Jones County. That's where our roots are. And I don't know what else you want me to tell them, but that's enough.
Get around our world now, best practice. All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Solomon Jones, and I'm from the Long Point area. Want to tell them what you might have been for that, but I'll just say maybe because I'm so long. But I'm here in behalf of the Jones County Youth Development Center for John White, and glad to be here today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiffany Griffin, and I'm with my project.
I'm just start off,
9 of the cases not
You know, when you say this, moving out just to see about before the city, I'm going to do this at
One story, North Carolina Technology Center on the Clean Transportation team. Martin Harris, outreach coordinator with IMVET, and Dave Gray, and happy to be here. Happy to be here.
I'm Celestial Communications Director at IMVET.
Marsha Wright, I'm representing today the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Tau Omega chapter, and also Eastern Carolina Human Services Agency, which is our community action agency for Onslow people in Hanover County.
Lionel Thompson, local from the Atlanta Green area, I'm visiting.
Brendella Coleman, Jacksonville.
Robert Hudson, Illinois State. Kenyatta Gearing, the First Vice President of Oslo County NAACP branch, the lead coordinator for People's Coalition.
Brian Jackson, Jacksonville City Council, Board of Trustees, Sandy Run Apartment,
David Graves, representing International Association of Minority Veterans.
Billy Saunders, representing the environmental of Jacksonville.
Hubert Saunders, representing Hubert Saunders.
You on your own. I'm Carmen Spicer. Carmen Spicer Realty, and also nonprofit Helping Develop Hands of Jacksonville.
My name is Latoya Stokes. I'm from Jackson, North Carolina. I'm a cosmetologist, and I'm also here with my cousin Carmen, helping her with her nonprofit organization.
Good afternoon. My name is Curtis Campbell. I'm the founder of NAVETS here in 2008. Also, executive board of Oslo County NAACP.
Good afternoon, I'm Chris Stubbs. I manage operations for the state health agency response to East North Carolina. I'm also a member of the city council.
I'm Thelma Simmons, Jones County. Hey, everybody, I'm Camille Simmons, the Old North State Medical Foundation, coming in from Greenville. This is little Christopher. I'm gonna ask y'all's patience in advance. He is here in an attempt to start him as young as possible.
Amen.
I'm Dr. Michael Friend. I'm with IAUNC, which is International Apostolic University.
All right. Johnny Williams, Illinois State Medical Foundation. So I want to welcome everybody here. We got a lot to cover. Again, we apologize for the lateness of the hour. We promised to do, and we will get it. It was on. They running an hour late, and I know I can wait on to get it. Figure out a way to get it in. It should be in a few minutes. So I apologize for that. But few weeks ago, we got a new council over in North County. So let's give a little hand. Found the president of Kingston Tees. He's done a lot of work with us, and doesn't work with them in the past, so we want to welcome him to Jacksonville. Glad to see him. Haven't seen him in a while. All right. And Ms. Johnson, want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Shauna Gazette. I'm from Poverty Activities in
Okay. All right. Our first order of business at this point, we have to do a memorial because COVID has taken a toll on the whole country and our community, but also on our organization. So with one of the tolls of bell, left the bell in my office. So I want this memorial to Renee Barnwell. Renee Barnwell. Retta Brown. James Spann. Dr. Carl Stanley. And Mimi Simmons. All of these people devoted parts of the foundation. We want their souls to rest in peace. And we pray for the family. Now, since we're running a little late, we can start with the agenda as you see it in front of you. We've been blessed to know that there has been possible solution to some of the problems we've had in our community. Disturbed. We get the worst pollution, coal ash, oil dumps, everything in our communities. And I don't have to tell anybody about coal waste and chicken waste and turkey waste. So, not that what we're going to talk about now is solve none of that, but for those who don't know, I'm sure everybody here knows. In the past, people try to get up under the wire for environmental purposes, and one of the biggest culprits in the world, not only in the United States, Volkswagen. And I'm not going to try to steal the thunder for that, but the proposed settlement, we're not proposing a settlement. I'm going to let the gentleman here explain it to you. But the settlement, they say, we'll give first dibs at the funding to communities of color. Rob, you want to come up and make the official introduction? So we brought some good news, good opportunity here. It's the first of its kind. And I don't have to tell you how, we got to, we brought the cars out the car, you're going to tell us exactly what it's all about.
Well, I think we're privileged today. I first met him, I was voluntold with the goals for the missions settlement meeting. And so I went there, and I'm glad that I went there, but there were only 3 people, and all 3 people knew each other, and they had a relationship with the foundation. And that's why I met this young man, Albert Longford with North Carolina State's Clean Transportation Department. So, Mr. Longford, you don't mind coming up and starting the presentation?
We're pretty sure this will be beneficial for everybody in here.
You all, I'm gonna move this back so you can hear me a little bit better. Won't be as hot. So appreciate y'all having me, and I appreciate Robert for that introduction. And I'm Albert Luxmore from the
North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center over at NC State, we're college engineering. And so, as Dr. Williams said, we're pretty much striving about air quality. And we do this through advancing sustainable energy economies with training, education, and outreach, technical assistance in the form of grants. And so we do a number of things. And the Clean Transportation team, they pretty much, they do this by doing fleet analysis for different fleets, and fleet analysis for layman's term purposes is pretty much kind of like doing an analysis and seeing how many vehicles an organization might have in their fleet, and be able to see how the right side of that fleet, like saying, for instance, if you have 20 more vehicles in your fleet, whatever the case is, we can be able to run the numbers and let you know what can be replaced and what type of practices may be able to better help you with the cost savings of that fleet, as well as help out with the environment, with their air pollutants, and how to mitigate it. So that's one example of what we do. We also do pretty much we have what is called the Clean Fuel Advanced Technology Grant. And Clean Fuel Advanced Technology Grant is designed to help out with the mitigation of air pollutants and help counties within North Carolina to meet their air quality status. So that comes from the North Carolina Highways and Federal Administration. And then the money kind of flows through DOT on to us. And so currently the CPAC grant is still in the works, so we can get that up around the country in April. But historically, what that has done is it has helped out 24 counties to reach their air quality status. Currently, they're in maintenance status, which means that we're doing what we're supposed to do in terms of replacing particulate matter, which is some of the bad stuff that as Dr. Williams also said with the coal ash that contributes to the environmental vacuum and helps out with really not helping out with air quality. And so we're help out with children as well as elderly, as well as anybody as a whole to increase that. And today, the grant CPAC is brought in just shy of $12 million through a lot of different projects, from light mitigation with vehicles to pretty much advanced transportation technologies to any number of things. And if I have my slides, it'd probably be a little bit easier to talk, so I'm trying to think off the top of my head. But nevertheless, the project, I'm not sure if Jacksonville itself is eligible, but I know that we were doing some work with the city of Jacksonville in terms of their transportation department, to help them out with the RFP for the CPAC grant. And of course, this is 2020, the pandemic hit. So we have done some work in this area, but we would be glad to help out any public organizations as well as private organizations with the application of not only our grant, but also helping out with Volkswagen settlement. And with our grant, we pretty much help out with charging stations and electric vehicle charging infrastructure in all the counties. And so we can definitely be able to assist organizations from that standpoint. We also do what is called sustainable fleet technology conference and expo, which is going to be held at the Durham Convention Center on August the 30th, and then it goes all the way through September the 1st. What it's designed to do is it's designed to bring together fleet managers, policy leaders, and anyone in state and local government to bring them about under the umbrella of sustainable fleet management with topics and trainings. And we're going to have 3 tracks and have concurrent sessions underneath those tracks that go along with the best practices and how to be able to help out with your fleet. People from all over the country attend. So, you all are more than welcome to go on to sustainablepleetexpo.com to see how you can be able to participate as an exhibitor, as a sponsor, as a vendor, or whatever. But be on the lookout for that. We will have registration open very shortly. Well, registration is open, but it's not currently visible on our website. But that website does have the previous
webinars that we've done. So the last 2 years had to kind of transition like everybody else and navigate what was an in-person conference to a virtual conference. And so over the last few years, the program director has done close to about 50 webinars on everything from telematics, which pretty much is put in vehicles to be able to see when the vehicle is idling and the best times to turn the vehicle off, to electric vehicle charging stations, to propane, to natural gas, to biodiesel. So we are a fuel neutral company, so organization. So we don't specifically focus on one particular alternative fuel. We're about all different types of solutions to help out with the environment. Another thing that we do is we do what is called the Keep Our Air Clean Art Contest, which kind of like runs in alignment with the CFAC grant for short, and that is also currently available. I believe you can go onto ncsu.edu. You should be able to get more details about the Keep Our Air Clean Art Contest. It is for students all the way from kindergarten grade all the way up through 12th grade, where they can pretty much express their artistic creative nature in terms of showing how alternative fuels and advanced transportation technology can be able to help out the sustainability of the environment. So they can submit their artwork via Facebook, and the competition is usually judged the last part of April. So we're looking at around Earth Day to win. Well, we'll probably do that, but the competition is submitted virtually. Said via Facebook, and the winners, they get their artwork submitted across billboards across the state of North Carolina. And then that's a big honor in itself. And typically, we also get tickets to Carolina Hurricanes hockey games and other things like that.
What was that website again, please? No address.
Don't quote, but I believe it is ncsu.edu, which is our homepage landing site. And then that should be able to guide you to where it has the link to our contest details. So by all means, get that out to all your students, and encourage them to apply and submit their own.
Okay, thank you.
What's the email address directly to go off?
I can get you that. Pretty much, yeah, if you go onto the NCSU website, that'll break everything, and I'll be happy to give everyone my card as well. The center, I probably should start off this, but the center is not just clean transportation. The center also has other departments as well, such as with renewable energy, and they put out state reports that's called Desire, that goes, it pretty much talks about the state, or the latest report talking about the status of EVs, electric vehicles. You also have like a department that specializes pretty much with clean industrial power and efficiency. So we have several different programs that you all will see on that website. But yeah, if you go onto that whole landing page, you should be able to see that. And I think hopefully I brought it across everyone. Yes. And then thirdly, we have what is called a clean transportation demonstration day that is coming up March 29th. That is going to be at the State Highway Patrol facility in Gordon, North Carolina. I believe Robert is already registered for that. You all, well, anyone that is a part of a state, local, federal government affiliate can actually register to attend that event. Lunch will be provided, but what that event is going to do is going to have topics on the realm of sustainable fleet management. And then it's going to have, it starts off with a classroom portion instruction, and then kind of break that up into having vehicle demonstrations as well as test drives. And we're going to have everything from class 4 vehicles all the way up through class 8 vehicles. So that's light duty all the way to heavy duty vehicles. We're going to have the Thomasville bus, which brings in the Julie electric, all electric school bus. We're going to have Bluebird, Gregory come in. I'm going to have some Teslas from the town of Cary. We're going to have Mach-E Ford Mustang. Going to have some pretty much some what is called bucket trucks for emergency responders and public works in terms of picking up utility vehicle type things. So it's going to be a large array of different vehicles on display as well to be able to drive. And Governor Cooper is also confirmed being one of the speakers presenters at this time, or at this time. So I think it's going to be a good one. We already have over 111 records. We were planning for 130, but we might break that record. But yeah, trying to get somewhat of a soft count as we go ahead and get these lunches firmed up. So anyone's interested might want to go ahead and put that in soon. And I believe if you go to that NC.SU website that I said earlier, right beside the art contest, you will see the link where you can go on the registration details for that clean transportation demonstration day. We also are doing what is we're partnering with the Piedmont Environmental Alliance to do or to exhibit, having an exhibition booth at their 17th annual Earth Day Alliance event at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds, which is going to be April 23rd, the day after Earth Day. And you all want to venture out to Kernersville, I'm sorry, if you want to venture out to Winston-Salem, then you're more than welcome to attend that event as well. In the past, they've had thousands of people. I think all of them probably like 17,000, I would say. They've had like large numbers for people to that event. It's for children of all ages, all the way up to adulthood. And so it'll be my first time attending. And well, I think it'll probably be the center's first time as an exhibitor there. So we're looking forward to it. And with the PW settlement, what the center is also doing is we're partnering with the Division of Air Quality, which is the division within the Department of Environmental Quality. And EAQ is where the money is being housed for the Volkswagen settlement funds. And so for the short of it, pretty much Volkswagen, the company, was caught with their hands in the cookie jar, pretty much trying to achieve emission standards and achieve emission standards. Got caught, so they had to dish out probably about $2 million or $2 billion, close to $2 billion worth of funding throughout all 50 states. And North Carolina has received a huge chunk of these things. And so as part of that grant initiative, EAQ has put out, is now in their phase 2 for the Volkswagen settlement funds. And currently, they are having Volkswagen information sessions. The next one is going to be March 24th, next week, next Thursday, in Kernersville, at the firehouse station. And they're going to be talking about transit and shuttle bus, as well as the DC along, the DC fast charging along Priority Corridor. And with this RFP, what they're pretty much doing is these information sessions, they are giving you tips as to how to apply and pretty much walking you through the general basis of what to look for and then what to submit, what not to submit, telling you to use or get a user ID as well as a password to the grant management system. But with the Clean Energy Technology Center, or us, the center as a whole, we are partnering with EAQ. So what we're doing as a courtesy is we're actually evaluating applicants' submissions that actually submit their applications for the PW process. So if anyone wants to see what their application may look at, or may look like, see if it's competitive and see if it's eligible for the PW grant, then we'd be glad to review that as a courtesy for people who actually enrolled in a coalition moving forward. And the coalition will be the last thing that I discussed. But currently, EAQ has 4 grants available. The 2 that I named, and then they have a level 2 charging stations for state and local government agencies, as well as their school bus replacement program, to where they have school buses that are 2009 or older. You can replace them with new ones, switch them out with another vehicle, brand new this time, or electric bus. So all of them are good, and you want to be sure to just make sure that you are focusing in on seeing how you want to maximize or the maximum potential for those points in each one of those categories, because they have different sections underneath the sub-section, the sub-headings of the grants. So when you actually get on their website and look at the different RFPs, you'll see what I'm referencing. But if you score high in some of those key areas, then that's the one to be key. But like I said, we can help you all walk you all through that process. And just by off chance, if some of your projects are not, I'll say that if you're applying for the DC fast charging along priority corridors, if your project is not in an area that's deemed a priority corridor, don't let that discourage you from applying, because VW, every information session I went to, they made a running tab joke of the hole, the money, burn the hole in the fire. So you said they want to get rid of it. So they're like a kid at the candy store before Christmas time. So they want to get rid of this money. So by all means, apply. Even if you don't think that it's along or fits the parameters of that grant. And so I think that is pretty much everything. Like I said, with the grant that we do, that'll be out in April. We can't provide as much guidance as we can for VW just because we're the lead applicants, but we do what we can, and we'll be glad to kind of help you all with that. Also want to let you all keep your eyes out on the Diesel Emission Reduction Act funding from the Environmental Protection Agency, specifically for school buses. That should be coming out pretty much, I would say any day. They didn't make any promises, but it's coming out fairly soon. EPA is also giving out a lot of money. They're trying to come out with air quality. And with all this Build Back Better, construction bill money and everything that's coming in, the federal administrations are trying to come up with ways to be able to help out rural and underserved communities, which kind of like leads to the last thing that the coalition, or I should say that the center is. So the center is in the process of forming a Clean Cities Coalition. Anyone familiar with what a Clean Cities Coalition is? My understanding? Okay, so
I'm only familiar because you mentioned it in Goldsboro.
So I'm glad that we have a standing room of one, so it won't be like I'm doing a refresher. This will be more of an introduction for us. So with the Clean Cities Coalitions, they were designed in 1993 by the U.S. Department of Energy, and it was a spinoff to the Energy Policy Act of 1992, pretty much to replace petroleum consumption and replace petroleum consumption with alternative fuel activities and educational coordination with the activities, and to help public and private partnerships to be able to help out and find mutual common interests, mutual common goals along those educational activities. And then up to date, or I should say, as of 2016, the Clean Cities overall had displaced about 7.5 billion gallons of petroleum consumption. So it's doing its part. We're going to do a whole lot more. With the Clean Cities, they are in all 50 states. And so the way it works is some states are their own Clean Cities Coalition, and some regions are their own Clean Cities Coalition. But in the instance of North Carolina only has 3 Clean Cities Coalitions, and they're all in metropolitan areas, being in Raleigh, being in Charlotte, and being in the Asheville area. And so what the North Carolina Clean Technology Center is doing is we are applying to become a 4th designated Clean Fuels Coalition to be able to help our specific rural and underserved communities, and to account for the other 45% of the state's population that those existing 3 coalitions don't make up, because they only make up about 2,100 counties of North Carolina. So we are seeking partners within all of Eastern North Carolina, all of Central North Carolina, and all of Northeastern North Carolina to be able to join as stakeholders in this coalition. And joining as stakeholders in the coalition, essentially what it'll do is it'll allow us to be able to provide more trainings that are specifically designed to what citizens in those regions are looking for. in terms of alternative fuels and advanced technology and advanced transportation technology. Pretty much the coalition can be made up of a long list of parties. And I can provide you all with the slides so that you can see, but pretty much it ranges from school districts to cities, to councils, towns, municipalities, transit organizations, transit authorities, light and heavy refuse hauling stations. Pretty much is the gamut. It's a long list from the private agencies. It is of no cost to join the coalition. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the values would be looking at the application of that grant that would be done. The coalition is going to take us as a lead entity about 2 years throughout the application process. But this is phase one is to get the stakeholders. And without the stakeholders, pretty much the coalition will be a stalemate. And so what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to get those key stakeholders throughout all of the central, eastern, and northeastern North Carolina to where we can take it to DOE as well as other federal agencies and say, look, these are the people that recognize the value in this program. And so that application will continue to move forward from there. Essentially, it's a 3-step process to join the coalition, which the first step is to pretty much pass the board vote. The organization does that, and we have what is kind of like a template that is a letter of support. But that letter of support is just that, it's just a template. You can tweak however your organization sees fit, language or whatever the case is. But whoever the lead person is for that, them sign off is the first step. And then the second step is actually accessing a Google form, which has all pretty much less than a series of 10 questions. The first question is I was asking for the lead organization person's contact info, but asking about the application to enroll in this coalition. It talks about 4 quarterly stakeholder meetings that the coalition will have, which the quarterly stakeholder meetings will not begin until the coalition is approved. But those stakeholder meetings, we plan on having those being either in person as well as being hybrid. So being virtual, so having a hybrid combination of both of those. And there's no legal commitment to join the coalition, so you can pretty much jump in and jump out. You see it's not working out for you anytime. Of course, obviously, we hope that you stay. But I think the last question in that Google form was pretty much is asking about, or is telling you the ways that you can support the coalition, like in terms of committing, say, 25% of allocating your vehicle fleet, moving towards alternative fuels and advanced technologies, to promoting any of the events that we're doing, to in-kind contributions. But so you can just pretty much pick and choose however you choose to support the coalition. But that's pretty much the form in a nutshell in itself. And that kind of wraps up my presentation. And I'll open the floor for any questions that you all may have and try to answer to the best of my knowledge.
Let me bring up something to clarify. You know, a lot of us in here that are entrepreneurial spirit. And we want you to explain us how we can get in on the ground floor to do something in the charging station, even though some of our districts here may not necessarily care about it. Possibly get on doing the team up. How would you advise to try to do that? So understand, if you got the charging station, you really own the charging station? Is that right? Explain how that works.
I would probably have to defer to some of my colleagues and the rest of the team, because I'm still a little fairly new on the job, but I know that they have been pushing the public-private partnership, and then so usually, I know it requires a cost share, and
It requires
a cost share, like say for instance, if the charging station was $100,000, you would have to put up say $10,000. And so I'm glad you pointed it out, Dr. Williams, is like with all the VW grants, they are what is kind of like considered a reimbursement grant. So you put the money up front, but you get rewarded on the back. But with some of the organizations, what you can do is like if you have engineers or somebody in house that kind of like does some of that work already, it would offset the cost. So that kind of be like considered in kind. But to get back to your question, I believe, but I'm not 100% certain that pretty much you would have to own the charging stations. But the key is to try to make the charging stations publicly accessible. Because if you make the charging stations publicly accessible 24/7, or make them accessible for a key amount of time out of the day, then that will help out with the scoring of your particular application. And then like for like certain organizations, like for instance, McDonald's in Elizabeth City, their on vehicle table actually have 4 charging stations that came in there in July, or this past July. And it was done through our electric vehicle co-op. So if you have like a partnership with a specific company, franchise, like McDonald's, then that's where you would see the benefit, like especially like along key areas where it's high volumes and quick traffic, as well as if it's close by something like, say for instance, Rocky Mount has their Rocky Mount events for something else. Because I'm even looking at, like I saw McDonald's off of 64, that is not even 5 miles away from the convention center, I want to say, and it's close by McDonald's, it's close by the hotels. So I think that would be like pretty much a prime location for actually scoring well in that DC fast charging grant itself, or level 2, for what you're looking for. But
can you explain the difference level of charging? I'm just fast flow meeting. Can you just give more? A lot of us not familiar with how it works with electric charge.
Okay, so level 1 is kind of like your typical drive cycle, to where that charge would take a long time, probably about 12 to 16 hours. Level 2 is what you see typically at your I need to
Put it straight.
Oh,
there you go.
On. I guess that will help.
It is.
This whole time. I hope you all have been able to hear me pretty much for the most part.
Yeah.
But anyway, so level 2 is pretty much for your standard businesses. What say your Duke Energies, your McDonald's, and most of your public stations and governments have. And level 2, that is usually about 6 to 8 hours it takes for the electric vehicles to charge. And then so what some places do, like school systems, for example, any bus that is not currently being used, they would have that bus kind of like charged up or plugged in on reserve to go ahead and use. So yeah, level 2 is about, I say at the most about 8 hours to charge. And all this kind of like depends on your vehicle. Like it depends on its age, depends on the battery life, any battery degradation, meaning like how much is going down or how it fluctuates. Like your driving habits, like if you tend to have a lead foot like I do, or if you pretty much just kind of like a cruising along. But so it's certain variables, but yeah, as a whole about 8 hours as a max. And then for level 3 for the DC fast charging, that takes anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. And so that's some people refer to it as level 3, but it's for the most part it's DC fast. And then so sometimes people have a mixture of level 2s and level 3s. Level 3s aren't, or DC fast charging is not all that common because that infrastructure and that technology is quite costly. And so you have to, even in looking at it, you have to go in and you have to look and make sure the equipment is primed and situated, as far as the ground and the lighting and the lighting and all that. So that plays a role for that. But yeah, it's pretty much designed, say if somebody wanted to, say, stop at a Harris Teeter or stop at a food line and they wanted to pick up their grocery items, they could stick that plug in to that DC fast charge and then get that juice. Or if you're traveling somewhere, is another example. Like if you're in Richmond or if you're along I-95 and you're trying to just get enough get enough battery life to get DC, you would plug in and get that DC fast charge. So you could get probably 30, 40 more percent, which probably would be the equivalent of say another good 75 to 100 miles, and I'm kind of estimating here, but you kind of get my gist.
You have an idea, let's say a whole state. You have an idea what I can charge for a slow, fast, and medium charge?
So that is another good question. If you own the station, I think a lot of the electric co-ops are still looking into that, because with the technology being as new as it is, you can't typically charge like how you would charge a gas station because it's somewhat unregulated. So if people came in and charged during off-peak times, which off-peak times would kind of like be during the day and afternoon, like say noon or whatever the case is, to a certain amount of time, the bill, well, pretty much the wattage the occurrence for the wattage wouldn't be as much, like say if you were charging during 10 hours after 6 o'clock. But so because of that issue, like a lot of the companies that are providing the charging, like say ChargePoint is one of them. They just install the stations. Chatterbox, which Nissan uses, is another one, but they're kind of being phased out. But it's different charging stations, and like looking at like putting money on the card and like all these different factors as far as like how to charge people is still being worked out with the being new technology. So to answer that question, you probably would have to get with your electric co-op and see how to be able to best manage that, because I'm sure they would probably want to get their hands in on some kind of way too.
I have a question, I'm sorry. To basically try to understand, I heard you said $10,000 possibly for the investment. I'm looking at pretty much trying to understand, if we submit, are we now going to be the vendor of these charging stations? Is that basically what you're saying? Are we going to be owner operator of the charging station? I'm really trying to understand it.
Oh yeah, you would be the prepared owner. Yeah, you submit the application solely. Yeah, you would be the owner / operator.
That's like that, right? Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
And with the price of gas like it is now, the future is great.
I would say so. I mean, because with Governor Cooper's Executive Order 80, which has now become Executive Order 246, initially he was calling for 80,000 zero emission vehicles, which is either plug-in hybrid or all electric by 2025. And so that's less than 3 years from now. So that's a pretty ambitious goal. And so in order to move towards that goal, you're going to have to get a whole lot more charging stations, charging infrastructure. And then so my take is that's why they are really trying to give out all this money and targeting these rural areas and in these priority corridors to be able to not put the cart before the horse, to be able to go ahead and give people more incentives to go ahead and get those technologies. But yeah, with the price of gas, yeah, you definitely, can't go wrong. Yes.
That was a question concerning the infrastructure, because you're going to add a tremendous load as more of these cars roll out. Are there any opportunities possibly even on the infrastructure side. And as that's happening, how long is it gonna take to actually work on the infrastructure concerning being able to hold that load as these different vehicles roll out? That's question one.
Well, you're on a tough crowd today. That, I don't have an answer to that question. I mean, I'm thinking that as new and more models of electric vehicles are being rolled out, then it can't help but to improve the technology. But it's still kind of like in the making, or they're still working out the kinks, for lack of a better word.
So I got a question. You've mentioned new technology several times, that the technology could improve. So here's my question. Let's say you spend the $10,000, you get a charging station, it's in there. 2 years from now, the technology advances forward. Is there any kind of program that will allow folks to upgrade at a cost that not rebuild or rebuy, but we will upgrade or something to the program? Are they going to upgrade the technologies that goes forward? Because it does no good to buy a charging station now for $10,000 that 2 years from now will be obsolete, and there's not already a strategy in place to upgrade as the technology moves forward.
Yeah, that would be something that we would have to address with DAQ. But I would say one of the factors that you want to do is at least with school buses, but also local government fleets, is you want to make sure that your charging station is bi-directional. And when I say bi-directional, it actually can feed the power from the vehicle back into the grid and vice versa. So that would be some of the ways that you can kind of be able to offset some of the costs that you may have for that equipment. So you want to make sure that you have technologies in place that can be able to offset some of those costs. And that's pretty much the.
But let me go back, because my concern is not the cost. It's the forward progress of the technology. So how do we address that when the technology moves forward, what we have doesn't become obsolete because there's newer and better technology coming available?
Yeah, they should have some warranties in place to address that, but yeah, I would have to ask DAQ specifically, like for their grant purposes, what that will be.
I'd like to ask, just to hear what you answer that question. How many here are interested in applying to the fast chargers just for the sake of interest?
Applying for what? A fast charger.
How many people want to do fast charging? Yes, I'm interested. All right. So the reason why I asked is I just want to see interest. I've taken time to look into this. I talked to DEQ, which is the Department of Environmental Quality. So before I answer the question, I just wanted to say, if you're interested, he's trying to help us so that when we can do the grants, they can look through it, because they have professionals that can look into it to see if the application is successful, and then they can say, hey, it looks good, or make these changes before you submit. I think that is the role that he's playing. But I talked to the people at the Environmental Quality who are the program managers for this program. Yes. So in terms of infrastructure, there will be upgrades, because even in the request for proposals, the RFP that was mentioned, the request for applications, there are people that are asking for money for the initial infrastructure, which will be you guys. But then in terms of those that already have charging stations, there's also resources to do upgrades, because there's no guarantees in terms of technology. There's always research and development. So there's always going to be iPhone 4, iPhone 15. So that's the context. So even with these fast charging stations, and like you said, there are a lot of factors. So there's a state in the US, I've just forgot it, but they just discovered a lot of lithium, and lithium is the metal that goes into batteries and everything. So they're going to start mining that. And if they can mine that, then they can make batteries like that are long lasting. So Elon Musk and other people are working on that, and they're trying to do that. So that means then that can reduce the time frame when a battery can charge. So some batteries will be able to go for 8 hours, for example, but nevertheless it still needs to charge them. And when that happens, there still be resources to upgrade. And mostly it's just probably if you have a charging station already, just like gas pumps, we used to have gas pumps that are just, now we have gas pumps where you can see adverts and you can do a lot of things on the gas pumps. Things like that will happen. But I think it's a good opportunity. But first of all, I think go ahead and download the Department of Environmental Quality website, get the request for applications and read it thoroughly. It answers most of the questions. But apart from that, you have to get the NCID, of course, the numbers, so that some of you that are already doing government grants might already have that. So you don't need to get a new one, you can still use the old one. But it's not, every government agency has their own management enterprise system. So the one for the developmental, the environmental quality is also different when it's from the governor's grant commission grant enterprise management system. But they have to enter into their system, and because a lot of government agencies that are working together to be on this platform. So for me, for example, I registered and in order to access the application, I had to make some follow-ups for them to get me into the system. So now I'm already in the system to access the application to do it. So there's a little bit of work already to make sure that you can get in and do that. And if you go through they actually have a manual too. You can also download the manual to look into that. I think that would be helpful. And then if you have questions from there, I think it would be helpful. But if you just look at it from this point, then I think it can bring a lot of confusion.
Can I add something? So ChargePoint, you mentioned ChargePoint. So they have the electric vehicle charging stations. So they actually have a standard warranty, and then they have a more comprehensive warranty that comes with technical support that includes what you're talking about, that if the technology were to change, you'll be covered. So if you were to go through ChargePoint. And by the way, Volkswagen has their own charging stations. So yes.
Y'all can go on to www.ncsu.edu.
We got some old people here. I'm not by myself.
ncsu.edu. And you should be able to see all the different departments, all the different programs, as well as the reports, the 50-state report that was done through Desire should be on there underneath one of the tabs. But it's got all that information. And like I said, I can give you all my business cards. And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, young man, coming all the way from Robinson. I believe this could be potentially a great opportunity. At least you go on the ground floor. Usually, opportunities get to us, everybody else there is crumbs. So I want to thank you. But I know hunger is an issue, and we can take a 10-minute break so we can just grab a snack to eat, then we'll continue. Yeah, go to bed. And then we'll start right back. So, some of the meals, man, because I'm good.
Okay, I'll take that.
You sit there and you shop, you sit in your community, and you're trying to reduce it. You just talking about the quality of now we have all those categories, all this stuff. That's why I asked about infrastructure too, because infrastructure ain't in place. We are going to start. Because if you only sell it,
Get your attention. Get your attention. I know we're really deep and everything, but Councilman Suggs can't stay long. Talk to us. I want to get the first mic over there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. If I can get your attention for just 1 second, 1 second. I'm about to head out, but as I mentioned earlier, you all know me for a few years now. Before last year, I've been managing operations for the state's outreach in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, trying to increase equity here in Eastern Carolina. And over the course of the pandemic, my job time is actually winding down, and the end of this month will actually be my last time working with the position. However, I do have a lot of resources I brought here from the Department of Health and Human Services I want to share with you all. There are some bags with plenty of outreach flyers related to COVID-19, the vaccine, and what we can do to protect our communities, as well as 2 boxes of COVID-19 rapid tests that you all can have too. So please be sure to get some of those items and think Dr. Williams and start to pass them out. I just want to make sure y'all have those things.
Yeah, because there's there's a waste piece to this. And you need to determine what that waste piece is. And can we accommodate that waste piece? Because if we're not looking at what happens with the charging stations that are no longer using, what happens to the batteries that are no longer using, is there excess or residual environmental effects from the energy charging station? We're going to be back to having the same conversation about the charging station.
Well, that's one thing to do, but they only use electricity. Turn it back. So they sell it back to the But those spaces, itself, it's a battery.
Yes.
It's a battery charging for the battery. Okay. DC, he's talking about direct current, but he can't be all direct current. You know what I'm saying? No. They have to go through a process. Because direct current means that there's nothing to stop. There's no intermediate. See, that's what we remember we used to
Look,
DC.
I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free.
Okay. Now he mentioned that, lighting and stuff like that. So I'm not sure when they say
there's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, stare, okay? That means give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from when it was first published and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org. It's lit.
My friends aren't getting vaccinated because they've had COVID already, so they think they're good.
Well, actually, that's not quite true. What we know is If you've had native immunity, meaning that you have been infected with COVID, you absolutely have some immunity for a period of time. But the vaccines give you better immunity, especially as we anticipate and continue to battle these variants and mutations that continue to challenge us. The other thing to think about is that if you've been infected with COVID, one of the reasons you should move forward with getting the vaccine is that when you combine native immunity and vaccine immunity, you get even better immunization and protection. So we want everybody to move forward with getting these vaccines, whether you've been infected with COVID or not.
Listen, there's so much misinformation on social media out there. And when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org.
Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free.
There's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, stare, okay? That means give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org. It's lit.
My friends aren't getting vaccinated because they've had COVID already, so they think they're good.
Well, actually, that's not quite true. What we know is if you've had native immunity, meaning that you have been infected with COVID, you absolutely have some immunity for a period of time. But the vaccines give you better immunity, especially as we anticipate and continue to battle these variants and mutations that continue to challenge us. The other thing to think about is that if you've been infected with COVID, one of the reasons you should move forward with getting the vaccine is that when you combine native immunity and vaccine immunity, you get even better immunization and protection. So we want everybody to move forward with getting these vaccines, whether you've been infected with COVID or not.
Listen, there's so much misinformation on social media out there. And when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org.
Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free.
There's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, stare, okay? That means give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org. It's lit.
My friends aren't getting vaccinated because they've had COVID already, so they think they're good.
Well, actually, that's not quite true. What we know is if you've had native immunity, meaning that you have been infected with COVID, you absolutely have some immunity for a period of time. But the vaccines give you better immunity, especially as we anticipate and continue to battle these variants and mutations that continue to challenge us. The other thing to think about is that if you've been infected with COVID, one of the reasons you should move forward with getting the vaccine is that when you combine native immunity and vaccine immunity, you get even better immunization and protection. So we want everybody to move forward with getting these vaccines, whether you've been infected with COVID or not.
Listen, there's so much misinformation on social media out there. And when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org.
Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free.
There's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, stare, okay? That means give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org. It's lit.
My friends aren't getting vaccinated because they've had COVID already, so they think they're good.
Well, actually, that's not quite true. What we know is if you've had native immunity, meaning that you have been infected with COVID, you absolutely have some immunity for a period of time. But the vaccines give you better immunity, especially as we anticipate and continue to battle these variants and mutations that continue to challenge us. The other thing to think about is that if you've been infected with COVID, one of the reasons you should move forward with getting the vaccine is that when you combine native immunity and vaccine immunity, you get even better immunization and protection. So we want everybody to move forward with getting these vaccines, whether you've been infected with COVID or not.
Listen, there's so much misinformation on social media out there. And when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org.
I know everybody gets something to eat, but we want to get So, we talked about the charging stations and all that. I'm gonna mention one other thing briefly, and then we're gonna talk about Truth Check, which is something we really need to know. Let me just say a word or two about the Golden Leaf Foundation grant. They're having a session, they got billions of dollars. Designated for East North Carolina. In other words, you come up with a project that you think will work, write it up, and then potentially can fund it. But those who really want to know more about the Golden Leaf grant, that will be on the 29th. It's on 29th, right? The 29th of this month. But it's in Goldsboro, at the Goldsboro Event Center. So, anybody interested, just look up Golden Leaf grant. And it's designated Eastern North Carolina. Every county is represented. Now, here's all the problem that I'm not going to hold about it, is that whatever proposal you come up with, you want your county government to sanction it. So, read about it, and we're going to talk about that some more. Right, next thing we're going to talk about is.
You have a time for
it? You mean the time to fill out the paperwork?
For the meeting, the Gold Leaf Grant meeting?
Well, I did, but I think it's 11 o'clock.
I can tell
Just
you.
make sure. Just look up the grant.
So we're gonna send out the information today.
We'll send that in. We'll send it out. But the next most important thing is this.
It's a better part of the day though.
All right.
Okay.
I don't know how many people heard of Truth Check. Truth Check centers around information that you get, whether it's true or false. Okay? So, if I tell you that the cow can't go to the moon, and you say that's not possible, somebody else say, I saw it. Somebody lying. So, it could be their imagination. Truth Check is an approach where you decide truth from fact. Falsehood. Now, it's not a thing where I'm going to tell you what's right or what's wrong. It's a technique where you will be in a position for you to figure out whether it's right or wrong. Well, I'm going to let you break this up. And I guess the best way to put this is, if I give you a fork, spoon, and a knife, that's what Truth Check is. I don't tell you what to eat. Okay? So that's basically it. Here we are.
So Illinois State Medical Foundation is collaborating with the Center for Black Health and Equity. We've actually started early February, is to help combat misinformation online. So if you have your cell phone, you got a laptop, I know you're easy, but the website is thetruthcheck.org. So you go there, thetruthcheck.org. T is in Tango, H is in Hotel, E is in Echo, Truth, TRUTH, check.org. And if you Google Truth Check, it's going to come up. It's going to be the first thing that comes up. And so you can see that the website went live a couple of months ago. The training's there. You see the yellow link. It doesn't tell you, one thing about the training is teaching you how to sort out misinformation online on social media sites. It doesn't matter. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. There's so much of it. The training is great. It's interactive. And for the people that participate, especially a lot of you today, you complete the training. If you can send me a screenshot saying, hey, you completed the training. It's like literally a check at the end when you finish it. It's a very brief training that we will issue a certificate. And I have a couple of certificates today for some members of the foundation. So they've already completed the training. Yes, you included, sir. Yes, it's urine. Very, very valuable. This is very valuable approach to deciphering this information. Let me give you a good example. Everybody in here has heard of ivermectin. Ivermectin, a lot of people say, hey, that'll cure COVID. One person said, yeah, I saw online, people have been taking ivermectin for years, and it's a safe medication. Okay. That is true. People have been taking ivermectin for years, but guess what? COVID hasn't been out for years. So what they were taking ivermectin for was stuff like worms and lice and that type of thing. That's what it's approved for. But that medication is not approved for COVID. Well, somebody give you a piece of false information, or partial information. So they take ivermectin and it's safe. That won't be a lie, but it's not safe for COVID because it has not been proven for COVID. Same thing with chloroquine, hydrochloroquine. People have been on hydrochloroquine for years. That's the one that your president, ex-president, used to do. People were taking hydrochloroquine if you got lupus and that type of thing. And it was good for that. But hydrochloroquine has never, ever been proven to have any effect on COVID. And if by chance you took it, you got well or better, that was a coincidence, and you probably didn't have COVID in the first place. But true check shows you how to make these decisions on your own. I can't tell you what to take or what not to take, but you use your own good sense to know what to take and how to take. That makes sense? Okay. So Rob, you're gonna say a few more words about the how they take this training. This is something you can do for the rest of your life. And then the other thing, after this is over, I don't know how many people want to get a lifetime occupation of being a contact tracer. We're going to talk about that too. You get your certificate from John Hopkins School of Public Health. You put that on your wall. That goes places. But not only that, that lasts for a lifetime. We're going to talk about that too. But right now, we're going to talk about food check. Just explain, so earlier, we're talking about to go to the website, you take the training, you can email us a screenshot that's at the end, there'll be a check, say, hey, completed the training, we'll issue you a certificate that can be done before our next monthly meeting, come to the next monthly meeting, we'll present it to you. So like I said, there are a couple of members of the foundation, and people that participate in our monthly meetings, I have a certificate for you today. Other than that, it's very, like I said, very brief training. Does not tell you it's dealing with COVID, dealing with COVID misinformation online. Does it tell you how to think? It teaches you how to weed out misinformation online. Lateral checks, for example, it teaches you, wait a minute, there is something up there on Instagram about ivermectin. Mr. Joe Rogan himself. You take your left screen and say, wait a minute, I'm listening to Joe Rogan, I'm watching this podcast. But let me look up ivermectin. You take another screen and put it to the right of him. That's that lateral teaching you to learn laterally. Let me pull up another screen to be able to look up this information as you're taking it in. We're not trying to tell you, that training's not trying to tell you where to stand when it comes to taking the COVID vaccination. However, it's teaching you how to fight misinformation, to get information from truthful, reliable sources. Other than that, thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed your meal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. On your agenda, there's a section that says update on COVID-19 infections. Everybody here knows the rate has fallen. Death has fallen.
Amen.
However,
That's here.
That's it, you're right.
Some places, the variant
It's growing.
is raging. And guess what? I still advise you to do your social distancing, wear your mask as much as possible, wash your hands, because I don't think it's over. Matter of fact, I know it's not over. All right? Now, I don't know how many people here know where Wesley Chapel is. Wesley Chapel Church is it's in New Bern, but it's sort of on that Pastoral Road, I believe it is. And, yeah. They're having a fun day on the 9th of April. And we're having and it's about troop check, and it's about COVID and testing, screening, have horses, for kids, they'll be able to ride the horses and all that type of thing. Initially we had a magic show, but it's a fun day to bring the kids and adults and just come out, everybody who hasn't been tested or needs to be tested, bring them out there, and everything is free. This is on a Saturday, April the 9th. Okay? And we're trying to do a simultaneous one. I talked to Pastor Gary. We're going to do like a dual cast, probably a triple cast. And we're trying to do that over at the New Center out in the parking lot on the same day. And I talked to Pastor Gary. So we'll be doing New Bern and Jones County, and also simultaneously. And we may be doing another site in Goldsboro. And Robin, is it possible they can see how this cast is working?
The what works?
The multi-cast, the multi-cast.
The broadcast.
Yeah. Is there any way they can see that, or we'll do that at a later meeting?
Actually, if you check your email, I said most people email in here. I just emailed the links to our social media sites. So this is being broadcast live via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Okay. Now, a lot of you are aware that when the Healthy Opportunities pilot, a brand new program where we try to deal with the social determinants of health. By that, I'm sure everybody knows, but that's talking about transportation, food, housing, and all that type of thing. I always use this as an example. Person come to me, and I treat them, and I give them this prescription. And the prescription might cost $50. Is it $50? I can't afford it. Is there anything cheaper? No. So even though they see me, if I can't figure out which person to get the medicine, I really have help. So, and even if you got the money, they ain't got no way to get to the drugstore. What can you do? All these are what we call social determinants of health. But anyway, there's a pilot program called Healthy Opportunities Pilot. Someone might walk up to me and say, I never heard of such. That is true. There has never been such. But the government itself, 2 years ago, said, hey, we need a pilot program in this country to figure out how we can untangle this mess we're in. So they say, hey, why don't we pick a state to be the pilot? And of all the 50 states in the country, North Carolina was chosen to be the pilot. Now, with that being said, the state is big. Everybody wasn't interested to know how to go about approaching anything like this. So what happened is formed 3 networks in the whole state of North Carolina. And lo and behold, ONSMF happens to be one of those networks. So that's how the Health Opportunities pilot came about, and we got interested in it. And we wanted some people to figure out how to handle food and transportation, housing, interpersonal violence, and that type of thing, like parenting and you know, white on the road all the time, that type of thing, how to handle all of that. So, some of us put in applications. And luckily, some of us got funded. And some of us that got funded and said, hey, I don't think I can do all of this. So it's opening up a few opportunities that we hadn't expected. But on the other hand, I think the goodness in us tells us everybody, and when I say everybody, I mean our group was trying to do this thing. If a few got funded, I think it behooves us to be like the brother people or sister people and try to pick up some of the people on the side who did not get funded. So that's what I think we need to approve it. I mean, to approach it. And we're in the process of trying to do this. Now, we got a specialist on the food project. You might come up and say, oh, where did you about that? That's Brother Josh. He's a pro on the food specialist. That started the 15th, a few days ago. Some of the other parts haven't started. The transportation hasn't started yet. And when it's
this week.
Yeah, well, so this is such a unique thing because what it is, let's say, I'm just using this as a metaphor. Or let's say you want to, let's say picking up garbage was one of the possibilities. And you say, I want to pick up garbage and make that money. But I can't buy a truck. What this would do, at least for some reason, help you to buy the truck. After you get the truck and get your business going, it's up to you to make it successful. But they will send referrals to you. Hey, you go on 14th Street, pick this up. And it'll be ongoing. What's so unique about this? You have never been in a business, somebody else gave you the money to start it. You be in the restaurant business. I tell everybody I know. There's nothing I've done in the restaurant business and club business. Except make some money. But that's everything else. But with this, you're taking that part away because they will have you, the program was specific to put you on the road to try to do that. So we want to try to do what we can to corral others and work together. But you gotta be trustworthy now. Okay. Now, there's another project a few of us got funded on called the NICE project. The NICE project is one based on treating more, you know, we have no cure for COVID, so I'm saying getting people vaccinated and screened and tested. And everybody here got enough tests, and I think we start your own testing business. But it was free, so you should do it free too. But anyway, some of us got funded with that. So with that being said, some of us can reach out to one or two, or some of the people say, hey, can you help pick up somebody, or can you help talk to them, and we will see if you get paid. These are paid positions, okay? You won't get rich, but you will get paid. All right. Thanks. The next thing, first of all, I apologize for the hour. The next thing, and everybody can come on this at one time. With the COVID, there's been a lot of anxiety and depression in our young people. A lot of persons don't recognize it, they just say they're acting different. And you got to reason that. School, you got to wear masks, all these issues are issues. But anyway, what we're trying to do, we're trying to take approximately 100 kids from the Eastern Alabama area, and we want to do something that a lot of them have never done. Everybody heard of underground railroad. Well, we try to do the overground railroad with the kids. What the world is he talking about? So what we want to do, take 100 kids, and we get your input on this. And we want to take them, catch the train in Rocky Mountain, and you go into Richmond and then to Washington, D.C. And they will enjoy Juneteenth weekend.
All right.
Much more than that. I laugh when I tell people, a lot of these kids never been on a train. I say, I don't understand that. I've been on a train all my life. They don't put kids on the side. I think, oh. That's what we did in the States. But these kids will be inside. And part of this route will be on, not like all of them be on the train. And then we will take them to the African American Museum. Oh, wow. First of all, 3 different states, okay? 3 different states. We take them to the African American Museum, the Capitol, the Limited, the White House, and the National Zoo, which is one of the best in the world. But more importantly, or just as important, these kids get a chance to see a performance at the Kennedy Center. All right. Now, we're fortunate because there'll be live performances from the Dance State of Harlem, collage dancers from Memphis, and the dance troupe of Atlanta. And I don't know how many remember when we brought the dance troupe in before, when we see you, and some of these kids really want to be ballerinas and that type of thing, ballet stars. I have to put these groups together. They're going to do a special dance. I don't know how many people into ballet and that type of thing, but best one I've ever seen in my life was the Avenue team with the dance team of Harlem a couple years ago, and they did a piece called Dukala. If you ever get a chance to see Dukala, that's one of the most amazing dance you ever seen in your life. And they have agreed to do that for these youth. Wow. All right. Now, this will be June 16th, 17th, 18th. They leave on Thursday, come back on Sunday. And we're working on arrangements for the housing now. And as you know, transportation on the train is exactly not free. So we're going to need people to help pitch in with that. But they have given us an outrageously great rate. When I didn't forecast them, I just told them the truth. And they agreed with us, so they gave us a good rate on the train. And we're just waiting on to get a good rate from Marriott Hotel. Right? So we'll be sending out information on that. But that's Juneteenth weekend. Now some people say, y'all mighty smart, figure that out. No. You just have to sign a date of no, it was Juneteenth weekend. So that's the way it works. Okay. Rob, some about you. That's part right here. Yeah. What's the age group? We want to be a member. We got to have chaperones of nothing less than 6. Nothing less than 6. 6 is the lowest.
Since I'm 7, I qualify.
You know that? We'll get up with the feet. But anyway, the lowest will be that. We'll get to have chaperones. Yes.
And how you making the selection? I mean,
well, we have to make a selection though. Here's the deal. It's in Old North State Kitchen area. So we got to try to split it up to cover all the counties. So we might have to do a drawing. Okay. We may have to do it that way. We can't give them all in one spot for that time. So that's the best we can do, but we do need your help.
How large is the area that you're covering?
Well, our catchment area for Oklahoma State Medical Foundation, we, from Virginia line to South Carolina line, east to Highway 95. That's our catchment area, 34 counties. But some counties are more active than others, so the one that's more active is where we get most of the people from. Yes.
Can we pay for, like, if we have little ones, we want to pay for them to go just so they can be part of the experience?
Well, we're working on that too, but that's a possibility. Now, I must admit, Kennedy Center was extremely nice there. I don't know how many people been to the orchestra and all that type of thing. You know, but they gave us all orchestra seats.
Wow.
Okay? They gave us all orchestra seats. Now, in August, I think it's August 18th, we were blessed again. Now, I don't think everybody was trouble on this, but they invited us back up for Hamilton. Yes, Hamilton. Now, you know Hamilton is usually $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I'm Alexander Hamilton.
But anyway, I guess that's how we do all this with no money. They wanted to. However, all these seats are not necessarily in orchestra, but he gave us, I think, 25, 26 of the seats on there was about $1,800. And that was, we're trying to sell those, not $1,800, hopefully we get about 10 people. And we would take some of what we get from that to pay for the youth that we can take. Then they give it to us for $89.
Wow.
Okay? So we're really blessed with that. And this is highly unusual. And I think we get out there and jump on when we can. All right, right. Where's yours? Oh. See, I'm true champ. But remember now, when you take the John Hopkins contact tracing board, it's really, you got John Hopkins, very strong there, put it on the wall, just like some of the guys that went to school with me at Howard, of the other persuasions. So where you go to school at? That boy went to Harvard. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, you got the John Hopkins certificate, it don't matter how. You're going to qualify now. You're not going to just check off a few blanks. You got to do some work to get it, but it is doable. Okay? No, this is a true check.
It's a true check. So, right. It's not going to generate a certificate for you when you take the training.
Yeah.
But email us a screenshot and we'll generate a certificate for you. So the next meeting, if you don't finish it by the time we meet next month, and then the following month we meet, we'll present it to you.
Yeah, try to finish as soon as you can. I'd like to get home to leave. Don't take 15, 20 minutes. But that's not for the bad mind, that's a true check.
True check, yeah.
You are now hardly gonna do the John Hopkins course in 15, 20 minutes. It takes 6 hours, but you ain't doing it one time. Huh? Yeah, Trace.
And I'll send that link out to that. So all the information that we discussed today will go out in the email to you. Dennis Biancuso, he is the president of the Yonzo County LGBTQ plus Community Center. He's not here today, but they are having, and this is item F, they're having a Men Who Cook fundraiser on September 24th from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Does anybody have any more information on that? Dennis, yes, sir.
So I'm on this board. So the Men Who Cook event, essentially it's intended to bring in men from the community, and what they're going to do is they're going to set them up, bring in your favorite dish, and there's going to be a tip jar on the table, and essentially they will determine who the winner is by who gets the most tips based on how much people like their food, and essentially that money is going to go to the charity. I think that part's still being ironed out, but right now, right now the idea is that money will go to the charity of the choice, of the chef who wins. They will be crowned Onslow County Chef of the Year.
All right. That sounds good.
Huh?
That sounds good.
Make the man cook.
That's a dress-up event too, right?
I don't think.
Others are. Yeah, it's very formal. It can be very formal.
Oh, he can't. I just don't know if that's the intent. His intent is if he has a dress code. We haven't talked about that part.
Participants, not participants, the guests. The guests.
I'll
dress
find
up.
out. I don't know
Yeah.
that. I don't know that.
Yeah.
So.
They do in other places. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's a good time.
Yeah, I think he said they did it up in Philly, and that's where he got the ideas.
Colorado, Philadelphia. It's been going on for quite a while.
Okay, and so, and I achieved, I participated in a webinar with Small Business Association. So for some people that may have applied for the EIDL, that you have to check your email, so I don't know who you use as the email when you submitted your application. Yahoo has jumped me. I'm not a fan of Yahoo, but Google does a much better job. But you may be getting an email, and it's slowly rolling out an email that if you apply for the EIDL, that some people may be eligible up to 3 times the amount that you applied for before. So remember, it was supposed to be $10,000, and some people only got $1,500. Well, you may be receiving an email that you can get an increased amount. So check. Matter of fact, I will log into the portal when you apply for the EIDL the first time. Yeah, that's it.
And I want to say something about people who got PPP loans. I'm sure some of us got the PPP loans, and there's a feature in there for loan forgiveness, and I think the first batch is probably, I think it's due in September. I'm saying if you got a PPP loan, go ahead right away and start that forgiveness process. You might say, hey, it's March, and that's September, but guess what? Sometimes it takes 8 or 9 months for to get to it. So if you got a PPP loan, start your forgiveness process right now. And the last thing I want to talk about is this, and then we're going to go shopping. And this is a whole topic in itself. As you all know, there's an opiate epidemic. Opioid epidemic is all over the place. Onslow County is no exception. We were at a summit a few days ago. We got the chief honcho here. He can solve this problem. But anyway, I'm bringing that up to say a lot of the funding for opioids, I do believe is getting ready to switch, to change. Now, heroin used to be the thing. A lot of people dying now. And guess what the culprit is? Fentanyl.
What?
Now,
You said fentanyl? Fentanyl.
well, whatever you want to call it, I'm telling you. Here's the deal. A pure kilo, a pure heroin costs about $63,000. Okay? So ain't many people going around doing that. A kilo of fentanyl costs $3,500.
And it will kill you.
So guess what? I'm gonna take a damn that mix it with fentanyl, you don't know no different, and you dead as a no different.
That's right.
All right? Now, another thing you have to be mindful of is this. They got people that make pills. I didn't bring my slides in there to show you. Do not buy medication off the street. I can give you a Xanax, just like a Xanax came from Walgreens. You would never know. They got the same numbers and everything on it. But it's adulterated for the touch of fentanyl. I see quite a few when I do the detox center. And I say, listen, you got a fentanyl in your urine. Don't be able to fentanyl in my life. And I would say, maybe not knowingly. But I can tell you got fentanyl. And you will have fentanyl. But the reason I'm saying the time has changed, up to this point, most of the deaths from opiates but not about persuasion. As of the last 6 weeks, the tide has turned. Most people dying from opiate overdose today, black folks. And I can assure you, the funding and the emphasis is about to switch. Because everybody in there knows, crackhead and all that kind of stuff. There was no emphasis on that. And years ago, when Harold was running around in Harlem, I was up there in Harlem at the time, you were too. Nobody paid that much attention to that either. And I was a country boy. I was training in New York, and they gave me a job because I'm doing my residence in something else. They said, you be a medical director. Sent me to the Bronx. And then I went to work over the Bronx. Everybody you know, lawyer, doctor, everything. And every question I asked, that's right, doctor. I said, sure. Hold on, the problem is I'm cured every time over here. Shoot, I didn't know. You cured nobody. But I'm saying, be able to look out, talk to the relatives, say, look, you used to get help, but this stuff will kill you. All right? So, just bear in mind, we don't lose it anymore now. Okay? All right. Then, others need to come.
I have a question that probably should Google, but what is actually fentanyl supposed to be used for?
All right, that's good. That's a good question. Let me tell you this. I had back surgery. They gave me fentanyl years ago. It's a patch. I put this patch on in the morning. 2 hours later, I was feeling the moon. That was the most powerful stuff. And what was happening at that time, if you take the patch off, throw it in the trash, people come rummage in your trash can, and they would get it. They would order it, whatever, get the fentanyl out and use it then. But now, it's easy to make. I wish I had a picture to show you how to make those pills. And they can buy a whole kilo, $35. You don't need to do that. That they will raise for pain. It's extra pain.
Excuse me, sir, we don't need to give them the recipe. Well, we don't need to give people the recipe. No.
There's 100 times more potent than morphine, okay? I always said 100 times more potent, and don't have morphine. There's about 800 times more. God said they don't get off the else tranquilizer. Okay? So, I just want to say, you got nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, uncle, aunt, so look, I know what you used to do. Things change now. And remember now, addiction is just like high blood pressure, diabetes, all that. It's an illness. But I must admit now, sometimes it's challenging to decide to do it. I can't go down with you, so now you know it. All right. Anything else? Yes.
Most of you do know that I sit on the Uncle County Board of Elections. Early voting is going to be starting soon because the lines that were drawn and went back and forth, they have now been approved at least for the 2022 election. And so, because they had to be redrawn because of we got a new census. Out of the census, we got a new congressional seat, and just shifts in population, things like that.
That's important.
And so we do have, if you live anywhere else in Armstrong County, you've already had your mayoral and your city or town council elections. I think there's a young man here from York County who won his election. But Jacksonville did not have theirs yet. So it's coming up. The filing was ended March 4th. So our candidates are set. There'll be a couple of minor changes, basically on precincts, because we had to move the voting. No lines or anything, just the place we were using before won't let us use it, so we have to change that. We'll be doing that on Tuesday. But the point is, we please tell everybody that you know, including yourself, that we cannot sleep on these midterm elections.
Gotcha.
We're always running down there for a presidential election. And as a member of the Board of Elections, without saying anything about any particular person, you would be shocked at how many ballots we had to review 77,000 ballots in Onslow County alone in 2020. And you would be surprised at how many of that number came in with nothing on it except the presidential election. Didn't fill out another thing on there, not state, not local, not nothing. And we had Cherie Beasley, who was the Chief Justice for the North Carolina Supreme Court, who lost her election by 300 votes. We probably had 300 people in Onslow County.
Yeah, could have said.
They could have gotten her back in.
Absolutely.
And think about how hard we had to work, when I say we, just like me, had to work to get her in that position. And now she's gone. Even the judges we have here locally, how hard we work to get these, our black, they're gone. They're gone. And so the point is, we also have a senatorial seat, U.S. Senate seat, that is open in North Carolina. This is a swing state. That is a powerful seat. You all know how tight the Senate situation is now. We do not want our vice president to have to be breaking ties every time she turns around, because it's nothing but mess and nothing but hassle. We need to make sure that we keep this Senate seat, well, not keep it, but make sure we get it in November. So do not sleep on these midterm elections. Do not ever sleep on any election. I don't care what it is, a dog catcher, go out there and vote. You'd be surprised, you might be surprised at how many people don't realize that the district attorney is not a seat where you apply for the job. It is an elected position. And if you're concerned about our children going up before these judges and everything else they have to go through, that is not a position that you apply for and get hired. That is an elected position. And I was surprised to find out how many people did not know that.
Yeah.
So we can't sleep or afford to sleep on any of them. So I do have a page once Tuesdays. Our meeting is over Board of Elections. I'll send you the revised form.
And we'll send it out.
Tell you where, when. Please make sure you are registered. And registration is not enough. You must vote. Faith without works is dead. It is not enough for you to be registered. You must put action behind that.
Exactly that. How many candidates around, let us speak?
One quick question. I noticed that during the presidential elections, a lot of information is coming out on this candidate, this candidate, this candidate. One in the Democratic election ballot had a little information about everybody who was for the people, by the people, with the people. If we can get something like that for pre-elections, more people probably would vote because they know who's running, who's doing something for our community. We don't know. The blind lead the blind, they both fall in the ditch. So we get some more information out.
I will get it to them, but the NAACP, the People's Coalition, Onslow County LGBTQ Community Center are working on a minority voting guide right now. The website is up and we're getting more information. And we're putting up, I think so far, what happened was we had a list of questions. We sent them out to all the candidates. We asked them to answer the questions, and we asked them the hard questions about race and sexual orientation and policies that are out there. And we're going to take them, and we told them we're going to publish exactly what you send us. We've already had members of the Board of Education asking they change their answers because they thought about it after they sent it to us. And we're going to publish what they sent us the first time and what they sent us the second time. This is going to be the most transparent guide I have ever seen. We are literally trying to make sure we inform our community. So I will get that information to Robert.
And we'll get it up.
Yes, sir.
All right, any candidates around?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
For those who don't know, I'm Brian Jackson, City Councilman for Ward 1 here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I can't help but reiterate what Ms. Wright had already said. you gotta get people out. You know, I think about what the churches had meant to us in the past. It was our social service organization. It clothed us, it fed us. I remember my great grandma, I heard she used to house some of these teachers at Georgetown High School. And a trip that I made to Mississippi one year was very pivotal. I got a chance to meet Medgar Evers' daughter and his brother. And I was really, it really impacted me on the amount of people who died for this thing. Yes. Met a guy named Horace Watkins who spent 44 days on death row for registering people to vote. And we can't even go walk in to vote. We do have people registered, but going back to what this brother said, people got to get educated. And we got to take, Junebug and Skillet and, make sure his paper's right. And if he's no longer on parole or, he can vote, and that word needs to be put out. And hopefully we get our churches, because we're, a lot of us are in churches and our organizations to get that word out. And what Brother Kenyatta said is that guide, that'll be very helpful. Also, we need to grow our NAACP. I think there's 17 standing committees in NAACP. And basically we could get into education or medical or housing or working with the children or environment, political action. There's a place for everybody. But again, I think it starts the 27th of April, is it, Ms. Wright?
I think that's the date, but don't hope, because I hate to give out information.
Yeah, but the voting day is May 17th.
Yeah.
So
and that's the primary.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that, May 17th
Right.
is primary, and
Right.
remember that you can't look at somebody and say, well, I can get around to it in May 17th. I'll just wait until November to do it. If they don't get past the 17th of May, they won't be on that November ballot.
Right.
So if you have somebody who's running, you have to support them at every single place in that process. And it takes money to run. It takes money, it takes time, it takes volunteers, it takes all kinds of stuff. But I'm just saying, that it's a process.
Yeah, I'll take your check.
You always hear folks talking about, voting is what we love, but it's a right, it's a privilege. It is not right, at least for us, it's not right, it's not a privilege, it is a duty. Too many people have gone before us and made the supreme sacrifice for us to sit up here talking about how we couldn't get out there. It was raining, or I didn't have time, I forgot about it. Forget about all that. I will also say that securing an absentee ballot is a process. Absentee voting was a huge tool in 2020, a powerful tool. And we need to use it again. So anybody who has the least bit of thought that they are not going to make it to early or election day voting, get an absentee ballot. It is not a difficult thing to do, but if you think you're gonna be gone, whatever it is, think about the absentee balloting because, COVID, don't want to stand in line, whatever the issue is. That's also.
And if anybody have any questions, they could get with Ms. Wright. You got the dates, Kenyatta?
Yes, sir. April 28th is the beginning of early voting, and the last day is May 14th.
And I'm sure we're gonna be working on getting transportation like we did last time.
Yes, we are.
But anyway, get out, get into it, vote, take your whole family with you. Get them registered, because they can register during early voting. Hold that for a minute. I got it now. Yeah.
And while he's looking, if you have, like I said, too many of us only do federal elections. If you miss 2 federal elections in a row, the state has the right to remove your name from the voting roll. They probably won't do it, but they have the legal right to do it. So if you mess around and haven't voted since Obama ran the first time, you may have an issue. So, it's about checking out, making sure if you move and you tell the post office, you haven't told everybody on planet Earth that you moved. The only person you told was the post office.
Everybody should check their
Everybody
check because I've heard other things happen. Another announcement here at Sandy Run Missionary, Sandy Run Department, they're having a health assessment on March 26th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Actually, Onslow Memorial Hospital will be coming out to support it, and they'll be checking blood pressure, getting baselines. They've talked about nutrition, healthy snacks, etc. But please bring folks out here, especially people in your lower income area, communities. Get them out here so they can get a baseline, get assessed concerning their health. That's the most valuable thing that anybody can have is good health. But anyway, and if anybody have any questions, Ms. Hillman is ready and able to answer any of those questions. But thank you for your time, and I'll get back to the good doctor.
All right. Yeah.
Just a comment, I just want to add on to what you were saying about, for those of you that did receive your grants for the Healthy Opportunity Pilot Program, I'm going to say again, remember us, it did not, and reach out, but I'm going to go ahead and, apply for possibly that second phase of the up and running. Share something, Thank you.
All right, just don't forget about our fellow man, my fellow woman. All right, is there anything else? No? Yes.
We have our own list. Joey Cook, who came down from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
He wants to provide some information of the upcoming events that we're having this month. Can we?
Yeah, you come forward. That's the right, who's our IT person? She wants to see that. I don't know.
Hi everyone, my name is Joy Cook. I'm also a member of the International Association of Veterans. I'm also part of the Onslow County NAACP. And I just want to talk to everybody about the upcoming health and wellness event. This will be held on April the 30th at the Havelock Tour Center. This is a statewide event that is designed to encourage healthy lifestyles, prevent and manage diseases, and connect you to resources for your entire family. So we're going to have vendors, exhibitors, food, different spotlight speakers going over things such as mental, physical, emotional, women's health, suicide prevention, just everything that you can think of that has to do with health and wellness will be a part of this event. It is free to attend this event if you would like to register. If everyone has their phone, you can go ahead and I'll give you the registration link and you can register. That way you already have a free ticket for this event. But this is going to be the Carolina Health and Wellness Expo. It's going to be held on Saturday, April 30th from 12 noon until 4 p.m. at the Havelock Tour Center in Havelock, North Carolina. Of course, there'll be information about COVID-19, the vaccine, also testing, anything like that. But if anyone wants to be a vendor or an exhibitor, there is a fee for that. So any medical organizations, therapists, counselors, clinics, anybody like that, there's a fee for that. But for public guests, it is free to attend this. Okay, and like I said, I have the registration links as well, so it's easy on your phone. So if anybody wanted to register today to be a part of the event as far as a vendor or just a guest, I have the links that you can register for as well.
If not, I'm going with my friend back to give us some club. Yes.
Can I make real quick? Councilman Jackson hit on it a little earlier, saying that the NAACP needs help. Just very quick, is it isn't. The NAACP is not what you see on television, where you call and when you make that phone call, protesters show up the next day. There's a press conference out there and lawyers are at your beck and call. That's not how it works. The NAACP is a group of volunteers like Ms. Cook, Commander Graves, Mr. Prentice Campbell, folks that are out there volunteering their time when they're not doing their everyday job or taking care of their own family. So when you call and ask for help, It's us trying to figure out your problem for you. The reason I'm telling you this is because many in our community have watched television, think it's an instant process. There's nobody sitting in the office somewhere ready to help people. We're on our free time, we're doing that. And the reason that's important is because we need more people willing to volunteer some of their time. I will just tell you, and I'll end here, Doc, is that my frustration as the first vice president is we get a lot of heat about what we aren't doing when no one else is doing anything else. I'm gonna be blunt about it. And so if you are not putting your hand to the plow, don't complain about how I put my hand to the plow. So we need people to join.
You did an application the other day.
I will get.
Give us up. Does it cost much to join?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. Nothing else? The right building? Roll.
Hey man, let's give all of those who give us the information a round of applause. Heavenly Father, we thank thee for what our eyes have seen today and what our ears have heard. We ask God to bless each and every one of us as we depart from this place and not from you. Give those traveling mercy, and Jesus, just protect us. In Jesus' name we do pray. And everyone says, amen.
Amen.
No, I'm a cleaner. Look, I know you care, but not everything we share may be true, and that can affect the way we take care of our health. Learn how to truth check your timeline at thetruthcheck.org. The truth will set you free.
There's so much misinformation on social media out there, and when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, stare, okay? That means give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from when it was first published and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org. It's lit.
My friends aren't getting vaccinated because they've had COVID already, so they think they're good.
Well, actually, that's not quite true. What we know is if you've had native immunity, meaning that you have been infected with COVID, you absolutely have some immunity for a period of time. But the vaccines give you better immunity, especially as we anticipate and continue to battle these variants and mutations that continue to challenge us. The other thing to think about is that if you've been infected with COVID, one of the reasons you should move forward with getting the vaccine is that when you combine native immunity and vaccine immunity, you get even better immunization and protection. So we want everybody to move forward with getting these vaccines, whether you've been infected with COVID or not.
Listen, there's so much misinformation on social media out there. And when it comes to COVID and the vaccines, before you share, give it the side eye. It's cool to be suspicious sometimes. Ask where the info came from, when it was first published, and if it's accurate. To get more tips on how to truth check your timeline, go to truthcheck.org.